A bitter sigh, accompanied by ghastly smoke, escaped the detective's dark, wrinkled lips. His piss-yellowed eyes tiredly dragged themselves from picture to picture, disgustedly observing their gruesome details. They seemed to hesitantly dilate as memories of previous murder scenes from only days prior glazed over the desk full of the gory snapshots. He closed his eyes and tightened his jaw as he shook his head. Opening his eyes, he took a deep breath. Another, much sharper sigh was forced out of his nostrils. His visibly aged fingers dug their somewhat unkempt nails into the wood of the rectangular desk, painfully creaking under the pressure. "Son of a bitch," his harsh, yet resonant voice boomed in the confined office. An abrupt knock briefly breaks his concentration. He peered over as the door was curiously opened. The commotion of footsteps, chatter, and various electronics broke the almost dead silence. A young, peach-skinned face topped with long, jet-black hair combed over to the right side poked into the room. "Good morning, Detective Foley." Realizing who it was, the detective stood straight. "Son, what are you doing here?" Foley briefly checked his leather wristwatch. "It's midnight. The young man entered the room, ducking his tall frame under the doorway and shutting the door behind him. "Had some paperwork to finish up. You could have saved that for this evening." "Well, I figured I'd just knock it out so I don't have to worry about it when I come in later today." Foley nodded, then returned his gaze to the disorganized heap of photos. "What's your name again?" "Jake?" "Yes, sir, Jake Mullins." With his wrinkled left index finger, Foley beckoned Jake to come forward. "Come take a look at this, Mr. Mullins." The young detective walked over to the desk and examined the macabre imagery before him. His self-content grin instantly melted. His eyes widened and his jaw dropped. A foreboding sense of dread seemed to grip him by the throat, as he found himself short of breath. A discombobulated mess of flayed cadavers defiled his vision. Foley glanced over, studying Jake's horrified expression. He pointed near Jake's right leg as he grimly chuckled, "The trash can's right next to you if you gotta throw up." Jake clamped his mouth shut and shook his head, as if he were trying to unscramble his mind. "His name is Thomas Mason, or as the news dubs him, Carrion." Foley began organizing each photo in correspondence with the dates they were taken. Jake rubbed his sweaty forehead. "Tell me you've gotten something on this guy." Foley shook his head. "We've been on this guy for 5 years, almost 6 at this point. We don't have a damn thing." Once he finished organizing the photos into piles, he placed his finger on a pile on the far end of the table. "Take a look at those." Jake picked up the pile, holding it up like a card deck. Jake read aloud, "March 16th, 2111. Foley remarked, "That was the day all this shit started." Jake flipped through the 6 pictures in the pile. Each depicted the body of a man sporting a brown, collared shirt, black slacks, and black dress shoes laying on a tile floor. The first depicted the man lying face first in a pool of his blood. The back of his skull was caved in, exposing the mashed innards that were a brain. A mallet, carelessly dropped next to the head, laid only an inch or so away. Its wooden handle was partially cut off by the frame. "Do you remember the psychologist who was found in his home a day after he was murdered?" Jake paused to think. He then gasped, sharply turning his head to face the old detective. "Yeah, I was finishing up my last year of law school when this case happened. The crime scene was just down the road from campus. Everybody was on edge after the news spread.